Hey everybody, Alex here for Nerdy Inc. coming at you with another episode of Our Favorite Frontier, the only Star Trek podcast on the internet that is hosted by me and Nick. Hey Nick.
Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. I watched some Star Trek today. I watched some Twilight Zone today, and now I'm watching some Arrested Development.
Ooh.
So we're going to talk about the first of those three things, which is Star Trek.
All right.
Today we watched the episode Contagion.
Captain's log, stardate 42609.1. In response to a desperate plea from my old friend Captain Donald Varley of the USS Yamato, I am running a grave risk by taking the Enterprise into the neutral zone. Varley's request was prompted by dangerous malfunctions which have been plaguing our sister ship. Perhaps with both crews working together, we can eliminate the problems before our presence is detected by the Romulans.
Nick, what did you think of the episode Contagion?
I thought it was a decent flick.
A decent flick, he says.
A decent flick.
Yeah, it was decent. It was...
Yeah, at least there was suspense.
There was suspense, there was stakes, everything made sense, and nothing was stupid.
And the Romulans are way better bad guys than the Ferengi. Do those little guys show up ever again?
Like ever in Star Trek?
Yeah, well, I mean, like in this series.
Yes, they do. Not less of a villain role, however, and more of a sort of... They come up to... They kind of turn out to be like the used car salesman of the Star Trek universe.
Mm-hmm.
And more comedic in tone rather than threatening, because they were never threatening.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll like them better in that sort of role.
There's one of the characters. There's one of the main characters in Star Trek Deep Space Nine is a Ferengi as well.
I know that you have told me that, so I knew there was Ferengi and other ventures, but I wasn't sure what we were into for our podcast.
That's true. But we're talking about Contagion. We got Romulans. We got decent plot. What was the plot of this episode, Nick?
Well, they are in the neutral zone, and Picard sees a Starfleet ship get blown up. And they're like, oh no. And then there's a Romulan ship, and they're like, what are you doing here? And they're also like, well, what are you doing here? And they're like, well, we didn't blow up the ship. And then they were like, well, who else did? And they couldn't figure it out. And then all of a sudden, they start to believe that the Romulans are being hostile, and the Romulans feel the same. And they find out that there is a glitch in the computer system that the nearby planet had set up, and crazy antics from there, trying to figure it all out until they finally resolve the issue.
That is true. Although the only mild disagreement I have is I don't feel like they truly resolved the issue.
Well, I'm also confused about how it ended as well.
It basically ended with them turning it off and turning it back on again. The IT
but the
department,
Romulans were going to blow up, and then they just didn't.
because Data because right when they get Picard back, Riker goes, "Hail them, give them instructions on how to stop the thing," which Data then goes, "Transmitting now." Because they had to transmit them instructions that said turn it off and turn it on again. And so then the Romulans didn't blow up either. It was a very abrupt ending. Very abrupt.
Yeah, to the point that I feel like I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, it was... The ending was the real disappointment in this episode. But we'll get there. Basically, there wasn't a whole lot of depth to this episode. It was just kind of... it was a mystery episode. There's some weird stuff happening on the Enterprise, and they got to figure it out. It took them a very long time to figure it out. And then they go to the planet, and we learn about this culture that's long gone, and We sort of yearn for whoa, they seem to have been destroyed. People fear what they don't know. Well, their technology is so advanced. Oh, well, we're going to blow it up. And then they blowed it up, and then they turn it off, turn it back on again. And it happens so quick. That's my real gripe with the episode more than anything else.
That the resolve is in the last 10 minutes.
It's
just rushed.
It's very, very rushed because finding this advanced civilization that had wonderful technology and things we could never hope to have, and sort of this competition with the Romulans over it is very interesting. And that could have been a really interesting episode of, we found this thing. It could do massive things to the world, but it's in this disputed territory. It could have been more, but instead they blow it all up. And it seems...
My problem is, why were the Romulans there in the neutral zone?
Probably just because both the Federation and the Romulans do monitor the neutral zone fairly regularly. You know, there's ships that patrol the border, and I'm sure some long-range sensor could have picked up whatever the name of the Yamato. They could have picked it up and said, the Federation is in there. We're going to go investigate. And so the Romulans go in and try to investigate. But at any rate, my big complaint with this episode is that it seems very anti-Star Trek in that it's the resolution is the destruction of knowledge. And
it is pretty much everything against the show.
Yeah, and it's yes, they sort of, it's all done because they don't want the Romulans to get technology, but they just sort of well,
was there no one on the planet?
No one was on the planet as far as they could tell. I mean, Data did do a sensor sweep and said there's no life forms there. Who knows where the Iconians really have gone, because as they mentioned, they could have gone through that portal and gone anywhere if they were, in danger of being destroyed. But it's just a shame to see such wonderful technology and such wonderful information go to waste because they're in the war and they don't want the enemy to have it. It seems very anti-Star Trek to me, and I found that to be a little disappointing. Also, it was rushed.
It was rushed. Well, would you don't feel like that in the interest of Starfleet, they would, if it was either leave it alone or let the Romulans take it?
I feel like
there isn't a dilemma there.
There is a dilemma there, and I think that the dilemma should have been more of a focus then of the episode, rather than just I understand why the ship had the random power fluctuations. That was meant to give it a sense of urgency. But overall, it was I would have liked a little bit more from this conflict between the Romulans, because as you said, the Romulans really are great villains, and it would have been more exciting to me to see this sort of standoff over this technology happen. We got that little taste of a standoff when both of their ships were fucking up, and they're like, we've raised shields, lowered shields, the torpedoes are armed, now they're not. I basically, what I'm saying is I would have liked...
And then Troy just goes, this would be funny some other time. I'm like, no, it wouldn't.
Shut up.
When is that ever going to be funny?
That was a terrible line. It was just very...
It wasn't even necessary.
That sounds like Deanna Troy. Basically, the gripe that I have is that the Romulans, as the main villains, should have played a larger role in this episode. I think there could have been a little bit more going on with them. I understand why there's not, and not focusing on the Romulans didn't fundamentally break the episode. It was still functional, and it still made sense. It was just a little disappointing. It made what could have been a good episode kind of just an average episode. I would like to say something else about this episode. I have a couple other thoughts I would like to say, this time on the positive side of things. I think this was perhaps one of the most accurately balanced episodes as far as the entire crew and what they're doing. Picard is sort of leading the charge and assigning everyone's roles. And he's trying to basically get to the bottom of what's going on. Data is using his technology as a dataman computer to analyze the... Oh, shoot, I just set off my Alexa. Go to sleep. Shut up, bitch. Stop.
He calls his Alexa computer.
Computer. Stop. There we go. Data was doing technology things because he's a man made out of technology. Worf was doing security things, arming the torpedoes and keeping a track on what's going on with the enemy ship. Riker was sort of running the operations of the ship while Picard was leading an away mission / doing the strategy of the mission. Deanna Troi was doing very little, but she was counseling based on the emotions, and LaForge was doing LaForge stuff, engineering, trying to deduce the problem from an engineering standpoint. Everybody on the ship was doing their jobs, and they were doing it in a way that was... The emphasis was on them just the right amount. I think this was and Pulaski was making sure that people were getting medicined and being healed, even though the technology was not working. And she was sort of advising people, well, we got to do this the old-fashioned way. It was just nice to see everybody doing their part in a way that made sense, as opposed to, like, why is this person here doing this? You're useless. Why? It was nice.
Yeah, it's like no one was standing around. I mean, Deanna Troi she did her thing, but her power is useless.
It really is, yes.
Because we could definitely tell how people feel before she says something about it.
Yes, I completely agree that her power was kind of shoehorned in there, but the good thing is that, you know, they didn't drag her down to the planet and to squeeze her into the episode to be like, all right, Deanna, now it's your turn to have lines. It's just like, all right, let's keep her on the bridge. She'll be there as an advisor. That's how she should be utilized. And I thought it was nice to just see everyone utilized normally.
Yeah, properly and by their protocol.
This is what a well-functioning ship looks like. And they solved the problem.
They turned it on and off again, just like the internets.
Just like all pieces of technology.
Who would have thought that was going to be the main thing that was going to save it all?
I did not remember this episode a whole heck of a lot. I was very disappointed when that was the solution because that's so lame. That's a lame solution.
Yeah, but that's what I would have done.
That's why it's lame, because that's exactly what I would have done too. And you'd think that in the future they would have learned how to make technology work in a way that doesn't require just a reboot every once in a while. This episode, I would like to give a couple other shout-outs to this episode. I thought the production on this episode was pretty good.
Two production bangers in a row.
Yeah, it was one thing for LaForge to be in that turbo lift, and clearly LeVar Burton is just pushing himself up against the wall when the turbo lift goes out of control. That's nothing impressive there. Then he gets sucked up onto the ceiling, and he goes flopping down on the floor, and he's bouncing all over the place. That was a fun little sequence.
I like that a lot.
Yes, because the turbo lift does not just go up and down. It's like a Wonka Vader.
I love the Wonka Vader.
I know you do.
If you want to know how much I love the Wonka Vader, please check out my Smash Cinema.
It's an excellent episode of Smash Cinema, just by the way. Your Smash Cinema is one of the best.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It's because I did my research and got very drunk.
Yes, the fact you got a shocking number of things right.
And it's not like I watched the movie before. I literally that's just me knowing the movie. Which is scary. That's the scariest part. Anyway, moving on to Star Trek. Star Trek. Talk about it.
I kind of don't really have much else.
I have nothing else to talk about either.
This was a really middle-of-the-road, kind of boring episode.
I think it was interesting to have such a heavy Wesley episode right before and to just underutilize him again. I mean, obviously, I'm okay with that, but do you want him to be an important part of the show or not? It's like they don't know.
Yeah, his scene was really, how do I want to say this? I feel like the writers don't know how old he is. Does that make sense? Like, he comes in and he's like, Mr. Picard, what do we do about the people that died? And, like, he approaches it like a very young child would, which is, like, contemplating death and sort of trying to wrap his head around that. Whereas, you know, the episode before it, you know, he wants to bang this hot girl. So,
and everyone else wants him to.
Yeah, and everyone else is actively encouraging him. Geordie LaForge gives him the day off. He's like, yeah, go have sex with that girl.
I again, still wish that my boss would do that. Actually, you know what? I think now, the job I have now, I could probably pull that off.
I can think of a job where I would have also been given permission. I don't want to name the job, but I'm sure you know which one it is.
Of course. I definitely understand. I work in a different industry. It's encouraged, I think. But not, like, completely to the point where someone would actually give me the day off for it.
Right.
In the middle of my shift, just be like, hey, I kind of want to have sex with this girl. My boss would be like, okay, your shift is over.
Have fun.
Have fun. Think of me while you're doing it.
But overall, yeah, Wesley is... It's weird, his portrayal, because he's portrayed very young or, like, in the midst of puberty or as a burgeoning young adult, depending on what the description or what the show needs him to be that episode. And I the more I watch this show, I genuinely feel bad for Will Wheaton because he's just given such shit to work with all the time.
Yeah, I just found it weird with the drastic change.
It is. It's a hard shift.
And we'll see what happens tomorrow. Not tomorrow, next week.
Who knows what happens next week? I might know. Let me look at the episodes. Next week, we're going to be watching the episode The Royale. I vaguely remember this episode. I don't remember the solution, but I remember the problem.
Ooh.
It's kind of a weird one. I don't remember what the solution to it was, though. So we'll see what happens. We're halfway through season 2, though, which is very good.
That's fun.
My cat is looking like she's about to poop or pee. She doesn't know what she's doing. So
that's how I feel every day.
Yep. Anyway, that's it for this episode, I guess. There wasn't a lot to talk about because it was just sort of pretty face value, I'd say. Very surface level. Didn't quite live up to what I think it could have, but was not flawed in any major way. Join us next week when we discuss the Royale, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Our Favorite Frontier is hosted by Alex Russo and Nick Caladona, edited by Alex Russo, and produced by Nerdy Inc. Be sure to follow us on YouTube to catch all of our videos, as well as like us on Facebook, Twitter, and whatever other social media we have.